Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled parent stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the greatest entitled parent stories we read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled parents you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that if this video gets 1,000 likes, she won't try to speak to anyone's manager for an entire week. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. And become an official member of the Re-Army today, and I'll give you a shout out in an upcoming video. r/entitled parents. Steal from me? Interrupt me while I'm grieving over my recently deceased father? Get cut out of my life. This is a long one. I didn't quite know where to post this, because the main person in the story is most certainly an entitled parent, but is also quite entitled herself. There are so many stories I could tell you about this woman. She's a horrible person all around, and would sell her own kids up the river if she knew it could get her what she wanted in life. Perennially dissatisfied with what she has and perpetually negative with a stage 4 defeatist attitude. Unless she's playing a role to get someone to do her bidding. I think she qualifies as a horrible person and a choosing beggar. A two-faced, backstabbing, manipulative, lying, drama-starting jerk who plays the victim when anyone dares shut her down or confront her with her deceitfulness. First, some background and anecdotal information to give insight into what this jerk was, and apparently still is, really like. I knew this lady, let's call her Karen, for about 9 years. I was an aspiring writer and met her, a self-proclaimed actress, writer, producer, through my one-time mentor. She claimed to have 20 years experience in the business, when in reality, the only acting she ever did was like a spoiled 3-year-old trapped in a 40-something woman's body. The only thing she ever wrote, besides a grocery list, was a bad check, and the only thing she ever produced was a bowel movement. But tish! My mentor was assisting me in getting my then one and only script ready to be produced into an indie film. The production was scrapped, mostly due to Karen plagiarizing and trying to steal my work right out from under me. I pulled the plug. I threatened to sue and publicly humiliate her in vengeful retribution if she didn't back off. That whole ordeal, in and of itself, is an entirely different story. You may be happy to know I'm currently revisiting my options with a wonderful new director and his highly skilled production team. Before all of this deception had come to light, I, not knowing her for the narcissistic sociopath that she is, had naively befriended Karen. Visits at her house were tension-filled as she let her daughter from her first marriage and her entitled brat son, 7 years younger, from her current marriage do whatever they wanted. They both behaved like hellions. Her daughter was 15 by this point and often retreated to her room. Her son was another story. He was a spoiled punk brat, and she never corrected him. She knew her son was a problem. She didn't always give him whatever he wanted, but she rarely told him no and made it stick. In the rare instance she did tell him no, he would throw a tantrum until she finally gave in. In retrospect, I realized he was only emulating what he saw and doing what he knew he could get away with. I really hope he grew up to be a responsible, respectful young man. If my math is correct, he should be 19 now. One particular instance, he grabbed my cell phone. It was an old Samsung flip phone and ran away with it. I can't remember the exact exchange, but I chased after him to get it back. He was laughing the whole time. I demanded it back. Instead of returning it, he threw it. I called him a little jerk and went to check to make sure my phone wasn't damaged. It was cracked slightly on the left side by the flip part. Karen was out of the room and playing oblivious. The exchange went something like this. "What's going on?" Entitled brat just grabbed and threw my phone. Karen's face changed to shock, embarrassment, then relaxed to a flippant expression. "Oh, he was just playing." I was dumbfounded. Playing? He cracked my phone. Karen, like it's no big deal. "It's an old phone. Aren't you due for an upgrade anyway? Look at mine." I was fuming as she retrieved her early model of one of the first smartphones. An iPhone, I think. Me, passively aggressively with just the right amount of vitriol. "Must be nice having a husband who pays for everything so you don't have to work. You are unemployed, right?" Then it was Karen who started fuming. She asked me to leave, which I gladly obliged. A series of phone calls and voicemails followed, with Karen calling me every name in the book. It was a typical cowardly reaction from her, as she always had to have the last word, even when she was wrong. She never had the nerve to say anything to my face. In fact, showing what a cold-hearted jerk she was, I can say with 98% certainty she was the one who outed me to my father. I would stake my life on it. This was back in the day of huge desktop set-up computers, and it was commonplace for everyone to use MSN or Yahoo Messenger. I had bought the whole system myself, and as a result of living at home at the time, everyone used it. Being continually unemployed, she did nothing but surf the web in her bathrobe and chain smoke all day. I would come home to a series of angry, unread messages. Social media really hadn't caught on yet, and I did not have a smartphone of my own. Knowing darn well I had to work, she'd be upset that I didn't immediately respond. It wasn't beneath her to use things I told her in confidence to blackmail me or file them away to use as weapons later on. There were times where I came home and found messages hanging in an unread chat, just sitting there on the screen, waiting for anyone to read them. I knew for a fact she spread a completely untrue rumor about my health. When I found out, I was livid. She learned very quickly not to throw rocks while living in a glass house. I fought fire with fire. Gossip and slander were among Karen's countless loathsome attributes. She talked major smack about everyone to anyone who would listen. The primary victim of her poisonous viper venom was her saint of a husband. She readily admitted she never loved, would cheat on if the opportunity arose, and leave him once she was famous. Eye roll. Cue the pro-revenge. Let's just say I had her saintly but short-tempered husband's cell phone number and might have put it to good use. Hypothetically speaking, a few none too subtle hints about deeply personal marital problems I may or may not have had knowledge of, as well as a suggestion he check her messenger chat logs for evidence of a suspected extramarital affair, would have been more than enough for his fevered imagination to kick into overdrive. It wouldn't have taken much to get going because his first wife cheated on him and left him for someone else. In case you're wondering, no, she never found out that I allegedly tipped him off. Now for the title of my post. It was August 2011. My father was losing his 6-month battle with lung cancer. He had been diagnosed back in February of that year, 2 days after his birthday. It was stage 3B, and there was nothing they could do. The chemo and radiation treatments only prolonged the inevitable. We had just received word that the cancer had metastasized. He now had multiple tumors in his stomach and one in his brain. They gave him 3 months to live. It was a particularly hard time for both me and my mother. She was about to lose her husband of 40 years, and I was about to lose the only father I had ever known. Out of 5 of us, my 17-year-older half-brother, who is a criminal, my invisible 13 years my senior half-sister, who continues to have nothing to do with us because of how my dad used to treat her mom, my 9-year senior brother, who was, at the time, serving a 10-year sentence, my fraternal twin brother, who is in addiction recovery, and me, the normal one, was treated the worst just because I happened to be gay. Cue Karen. She called multiple times daily, wanting to shoot the proverbial BS, knowing darn well I had other things to deal with, and I had already made it clear I had no desire to speak with her. I would remind her that I had a terminally ill parent, and I didn't need her drama being dumped on top of everything else. She wasn't used to anyone standing up to her, least of all me. Now for the ultimate example of Karen-ness. September 8th, 2011 arrives, and my mom gets the call that just before 7 a.m. that my father had passed away. As soon as she left to go to hospice, I called Karen, not for moral support, but to explicitly instruct her not to bug me with her petty drama. "Are you okay?" "No." I paused, reflecting how my life had now irreparably changed, as the only father I had ever known was now gone. Any chance of him ever being proud of me, or us being friends, as slim as it was gone forever. Karen immediately started talking about herself. I cut her off. "Karen, I don't care. I called to tell you I need some time to myself. Time without you invading my life with tales of woe concerning your broke self, your husband, your kids, or of your self-made pathetic existence. My mom just lost her husband of 40 years, and I need to help her get through this. Relatives are going to be ringing the phone off the hook, and I don't need you adding to it too." Karen went to say something else, and I hung up. After going to the funeral home to arrange for my father's cremation, I spent the day helping Mom out around the house. She, understandably, had gotten into the vodka she had stashed away. This was partially to deal with the loss of her husband, but also to numb the mixture of pain and aggravation of fielding phone calls from her numerous, cantankerous former in-laws. In an attempt to clear my head, I went out by myself. I left my phone at home. Call it a hunch, but I knew Karen would not be able to comply with my no-contact order. I returned home several hours later. Between my cell phone and landline, I kid you not, there were at least a dozen missed calls, all from, you guessed it, Karen. I promptly started deleting all her calls and voicemails without listening to or returning them. I was in the process of changing the voicemail greeting from my father's voice to mine when the phone rang again. It was Karen. I answered, and before I even finished saying hello, she started talking about herself. I snapped. "Shut up! What part of my father passed away today don't you understand? What is your malfunction?" I hear a gasp then, with the cruelest phrase that could ever be said to a grieving son. Karen responded, "Well, you two never got along anyway." It was like a baseball bat hit me across my chest. "You jerk!" I hung up. A series of emails and private messages followed, most likely all failed attempts to defend her cruel retort as something that was said in the heat of the moment. I didn't read them, and I wasn't having it, as she had shown her true colors. Insight to what she thought was so important to repeatedly bug me mere hours after my father's death. Karen was still thinking she was going to be some hotshot actress. According to her, she was the second coming of Meryl Streep. As if. Apparently, she had used her connection through my graphic web designer friend to get his client, a director in New Jersey. In a desperately pathetic attempt to get him to hire her, Karen kept spamming said director with her highly embellished, typo-filled resume and camera phone photo, which she was trying to pass off as a professional headshot. I later found out from my web designer friend the director called Karen a crazy jerk and blocked her. Helpful hint, never lie on your resume. After that, I made sure Karen and I had little to no contact. Once I changed cell phone providers and numbers, I stopped hearing from her altogether. In some ways, I truly wish I could have been a fly on the wall to see her reaction when she realized I had blocked her on all my social media, tried calling my non-working old cell number, and all her emails came back as undeliverable. Cue evil laughter. I don't feel bad at all for ghosting her, just relieved and liberated. I hope that vile jerk enjoys rotting in her messed up world. Sorry, not sorry. Permission to use this on YouTube is granted. Just please drop the link in the comment section so I can watch the video once it's available. Thank you. Edit. Update. I recently reconnected with my web designer friend. According to him, Karen's spiteful elderly mother-in-law lives with them now. There's lots of bad blood between her and Karen. Mother-in-law had gotten a bad vibe from Karen from the very beginning and has hated her ever since. Their rocky relationship went from toxic to nuclear when Karen trapped mother-in-law's saint of a son into marriage by accidentally getting pregnant with entitled Brad. Well, karma kicked Karen in the butt, and she is now her crabby mother-in-law's nursemaid. Karen's daily routine now includes waiting on mother-in-law hand and foot, and she is lectured on how she ruined her son's life and turned her grandson into a spoiled entitled Brad. Knowing all this, I scratch my head, wondering why Karen's husband never left her. I had always presumed, once entitled Brad went off to college, her saintly husband would serve Karen with divorce papers and beat it out of there. I digress and shrug. Not my problem. Update 2. According to my web designer friend, Karen's daughter is almost 27, married, and has a kid of her own, and her half-brother, the entitled Brad, is almost 20. From what I understand, entitled Brad is in college and wants to cut the cord by going in the military. As I heard it, neither of them maintain contact with their mother. Next we've got entitled mom tries to get me to date her entitled son. Thought he was alright until this happened. Okay, long-time stalker, second time posting, yada yada. I have recently graduated from high school. Shout out to classes of 2019, and have been working up the nerve to post this. At the beginning of my senior year, my math teacher assigned us partners for tests. What that meant was for the rest of the semester and possibly school year, if anyone was still in his class second semester, we would study with an individual for upcoming tests during class time when assigned. He did this so when a test was coming up and we were given time in class to study, we wouldn't just talk with a group of people instead of using the time to study. Our partners were decided through popsicle sticks that were colored at the end. I picked a light green stick, and my partner was, you guessed it, the entitled kid. The first instinct when I saw him was, pretty boy who relies more on his looks than his brain. I know that's mean, but hey, I do that. Sorry. He was really handsome though. Dark blonde hair that was cutely messed, and hazel eyes. I smiled a bit, and we started to chat. It was the third or fourth day of the start of the school year, so nothing major was happening. I learned his name. I'm still calling him entitled kid. He learned mine, and we discussed numerous topics, ranging from what our dream jobs were. His was to be a CEO, but forgot which company. Mine is to be an artist. What our study habits were like, so that we could negotiate times and techniques to help, and our hobbies. Class ended and we said bye. Over the next few weeks, while we were still in the first month of school, I thought that we were good friends. We started to hang out after school as well, which might have sparked the thought into his head that I wanted to date him. I did like him, but not in the want to date kind of way. On Halloween, I decided to dress up as my favorite superhero, Go Raven, and he was a jail escapee. He commented on my costume, and I couldn't help but notice that his gaze landed on my legs. If you know what Raven looks like, in this version I was in, she is basically in a black one piece with sheer gray stockings. Since our school didn't allow costumes that would be deemed too revealing, I went with black shorts and the stockings. My costume was sort of put together, found desperate prices at thrift stores deal. A while later, and it's now the new year, and some students transferred out and others in. Those who both stayed in from last semester stayed as partners, and newcomers, as well as students whose previous partners entered new classes, were teamed up again. Entitled Kid and I were still in the same class, and for the first time, he invited me over to his house so that we could study together for an upcoming test. It was a tough chapter, and I've been to his house twice before, so I agreed. I arrive on Saturday afternoon, and we begin, staying in the living room. I have a habit of tuning others out when I'm focusing, so I didn't notice right away when he called for my attention. Start of the cast. We've got me, the daughter of Trigon. We've got the Entitled Kid. Entitled Kid.
Hey, OP.
Huh?
I wanted to say for a while now that you're really pretty.
For the first time that I've known him, he looked bashful. I felt my cheeks heat up a bit as I thanked him politely, while wondering where the heck did that come from. This is where the mother comes in. I've met her before and thought she was nice, but a bit proud. She's going to be the entitled mom. Entitled mom walked by. We said hello, then I didn't know what to do. Thankfully, Entitled Kid spoke up.
I want to be your boyfriend.
I swear my face was hot enough to fry an egg on it. I stutter a bit, then calm down. Entitled Kid, I'm flattered, but I'm not comfortable with, well, starting a relationship. He looked stung and spoke in a matching tone.
With me?
With anyone. He stumped, and honestly, I felt really bad for him. I did care about him and didn't want to hurt him at all, but I really didn't want to start a relationship with anyone. Still don't, actually. We sat there for a moment, and just as I was about to open my mouth to ask if he wanted me to leave, the entitled mom stormed in, full Karen mode. How dare you! I jump, as I've never heard her shout, and thought for a second she was on the phone, but she was staring at me. What? My precious boy has been working up his courage to ask you out, and you reject him? You have some nerve leading him on, then crushing him. I stammer and feel my face warm up again. I didn't. I didn't lead him on. This is when Entitled Kid starts to show his real personality. Insert the whining, I want it, mommy, tone that babies use. Entitled Kid. Then what about all those times we went out? I look at him. I thought those were just hangouts. I didn't think that. You apologize to my son right now and go out with him. I turned back to her, and with the most stone-cold expression I could put on with a warm face, bluntly said, No. I start to grab my book and supplies that I brought. An Entitled Kid starts to tantrum, full on. He even shattered the glass that he had with water. Entitled Mom hurried to coddle him and shout at me. Now look what you've done. You little jerk. You have to go out with him. He won't stop until you do. That's when I knew that Entitled Kid was spoiled silly. Then he has to learn that I'm not something that he can have. I left, and the next school day asked if I could study alone from now on. When asked why, I said that it was personal. My teacher allowed it, and whenever I saw Entitled Kid approach me, I gave him my best, come near me, and I swear I'll scratch your eyes out. Look, then promptly turned away. And our final story of the day. Karen wants balloons blown up that she bought elsewhere. Hello, Mr. Reddit and the Re-Army. Thanks so much for having my story in your last video. One of the stories in it reminded me of another story from my job. Little bit more background on my job. I'm always put on the tills, so I have to deal with a lot of people and Karens. Anyway, my job does our own balloons that say welcome home and all that. We don't do outside balloons from other shops. Anyway, on to the story. Our cast. We've got me, Ezio Auditor. True fans will get the reference. We've got Manager, funny and doesn't deal with Karen's ish. We've got Entitled Parent, Karen, who can't take no for an answer. On to the story. Yet another late night shift, and I've just come back off my break. Kind of sleepy due to not getting much sleep the night prior. Anyway, I get back to my till and doing what every person in retail knows well, and do my usual getting on with customers and having a few conversations with some nice customers. Thank God there are people who are nice to us in retail. And I am just about finished with another customer when the entitled parent cuts in front of everyone. And the minute I looked up and saw the hair and way she dressed, alarm bells were going in my head. Oh no, it can't be really a Karen.
Excuse me? Do you mind blowing up these balloons for me? As I need them urgently. My son's flight is about to get in, and I want to surprise him with these.
Sorry, ma'am. We don't do these balloons, and you just cut in front of everyone else, so I need you to go to the back of the line. Entitled parent, looking like I just said the worst thing in her whole entire life, with a wide mouth.
I want to speak to your manager, now!
Luckily, he was right beside me helping other people. Manager.
What seems to be the problem here?
He
Looking at me with daggers in her eyes.
wouldn't blow these balloons for me and said nasty things to me. I want him to apologize for being so rude.
Little side note. If you are a jerk to me or my friends in work or outside, I'll be one right back. But today it was a good note, as many people being jerks. Manager.
Really? 'Cause I've been standing next to both of you the whole time, and all he said was we don't do them, and asked you to go to the back of the line as you cut in front of people.
Well then, she shrieked, I am not going to deal with this. I'm getting the cops.
Go right ahead. We have footage and several people who would say different from whatever you say to the cops.
Entitled parent walks away in a fit of anger, and while walking away, tries to get me by the window that was in the previous story when I was making coffee for another person who was there, and I just moved to the other side, and she went off screaming and roaring about us being rude to a paying customer. She never bought anything. Sorry if this post is really long, but it was kind of funny to me, because that was my very first encounter with a Karen, and I've been in retail for nearly 3 years. Again, Mr. Reddit, full permission granted, and once again, thanks for reading my story. I help Karen out, and she tries to get me fired. Hello, Mr. Reddit. Thanks for reading my first post. It was quite enjoyable. I have another entitled person's post I want to share, and I hope you like this one as well. So, as stated in my previous post, I work at a hotel that my mother owns. It's an easy enough job, I guess. I meet a lot of nice people, as well as a lot of jerks. This was one time when the two became one. So, it was a typical Friday. The day was easy, and I only had one room to clean, so I was in a decent mood. I was cleaning room 230, which I only mention as that particular room seems to have a history of negativity to it. More on that in a future post. So it was summer, so I was wearing a t-shirt and some loose-fitting exercise shorts, as it was quite hot out that day. The room was pretty easy, and I was just finishing up when I hear a knock at the door. I turn around, and a very attractive-looking lady was standing in the doorway. She had long blonde hair that went to her shoulders. Her eyes were bright, and she had a lovely smile. I returned the smile and asked, "Can I help you?" She walks into the room and in a very sweet voice said, "Yes, I stayed in this room last night, and I can't seem to find my phone, and was wondering if I perhaps left it in here." I shook my head and replied, No, I'm sorry, I haven't seen any phone, but I can certainly keep an eye out. She comes in a little closer and asks, Well, can I help you look? It's very important I find it. I can't afford to replace it right now. I smile and say, Of course, that's no problem at all. And we begin searching the room, checking behind the bed, the garbage can, and all the dresser drawers. No luck. All the while making idle chit-chat, she mentioned how beautiful our hotel was and what a lovely stay she had as we kept searching the room together. Finally, I get on my hands and knees and start looking under the furniture, and that's when I spotted the white iPhone directly under the chair in the room. I thought how odd its placement was, right under the center of the chair. I brushed the thought aside and grabbed the phone and cried out, Eureka! And emerged from under the chair with the phone in my hand. She lit up.
OMG! You found it! Thank you so much! I could kiss you!
And that's exactly what she did. She embraced me in a hug and planted a kiss on my cheek. I blushed and muttered something like, No problem, happy to help. She left and I finished cleaning the room, feeling great about myself. After that, I walked into the bar to return the room key to the bartender, thinking about teasing my wife about how I got options and she better step her game up when I get home. When I noticed my mom and let's call her our secretary, OS, huddled over the phone, and they look mad. I approached them, not even bother trying to hide the fact that I was eavesdropping when I hear it. The majestic call of the wild Karen over the other end of the phone.
Your cleaner is a thief, and I want him fired. And while you're at it, give me my money back for my troubles.
My eyes widened as I realized who was on the phone. Her voice no longer had that beautiful tone to it. Instead, she had transformed into the almighty Karen. I listened in as our secretary rubbed her temples in annoyance.
All right, go over this one more time. You said you lost your phone and asked our cleaner to help you find it? And then what?
The snarl that came over the phone was almost inhuman.
And then your thieving cleaner crawled under the couch and took my phone out of his pocket and put it under the chair, claiming he had found it there.
She screeched.
I saw him do it with my own eyes.
I couldn't believe my ears. This couldn't have been the same sweet person I had just helped. How could she accuse me of something so low? My mom looked at me and knew she was lying just by looking in my eyes.
Ma'am, I'm sorry if you think our cleaner did something unlawful, but our policy clearly states no refunds, our secretary explained. At this point, it became very clear that she just wanted to get her stay comped for the night. She began ranting and raving about how much of a mess our place is, how unprofessional I am, and then accused me of stealing again. All the while demanding not only her money back for the night, but a free room for the weekend. If you read my last post, you already know I don't take any BS from anyone. This lady had just pushed my buttons. Excuse me, ma'am, I spoke up, mocking her tone. But you approached me crying about your phone, and I took time out of my day to help you. This is how you repay me? The other end of the phone went dead silent at the sound of my voice. She didn't expect me to get on the phone. I hear her talking to someone else with her, and Karen comes back on.
You did try to steal my phone, and when you realized you were caught, you planted the phone so you wouldn't get in trouble. I saw you.
My voice starts to get harsh, and I start getting red. Ignoring my mother signaling me to stop, I continue my interrogation. What alternate universe were you watching? I helped you find your phone, and certainly didn't try to steal it. She screeched back at me.
You most certainly did. I saw you take the phone out of your pocket and put it under the chair.
This was when I hit her with the coup de grace. I'm not sure what magic trick you saw, but for me to take the phone out of my pocket would be impossible, as I don't have any pockets in these shorts. She went silent and then sneered at me.
It doesn't matter that you didn't do it. I'm going to say you did. Get you fired. And get a free weekend out of your hotel. I might just get you arrested too, just for a laugh. And there's nothing you can do about it.
This was when my mom said, "There's quite a bit we can do about it, miss. For starters, you won't be getting my son fired today." You see, Karen must have thought I had grabbed the phone and not known she was on speaker the entire time. She also didn't realize she was accusing the owner's son. Also, we will be giving your information to the police, and if you ever come back here again, I will have you arrested. Have I made myself clear? For once, Karen was speechless. All we heard was panicked breathing on the other end. We hung up the phone and did just that. We found out later that this couple had been doing this to hotels across several counties. The information was passed on to other hotel owners, and they have been blacklisted. I haven't seen her since. Next we've got Entitled Mom Tries to Take My Christmas Gifts, Part 2. Hi, Mr. Reddit. I have an update to a story I posted a couple days ago. Apparently, Bratty Kid from the first story is subscribed to Mr. Reddit and some other people who cover Reddit on YouTube, and they saw the video where the story about Christmas came up. For those who haven't read the other story, here is a quick recap. Bratty Kid wants the drawing tablet my grandma got me for Christmas, and Entitled Mom says I should give it to him. When I say no, she starts saying I should give him my new Minecraft game for the Switch. So I was sitting home alone today, and there's a knock at the door. Now, as a kid with trust issues for various reasons, I check out a side window to see who it is at the door before I open it. So when I finally open it, I am greeted with Entitled Mom.
There you are. What took you so long, you little jerk?
I was making sure it wasn't a criminal. Bratty Kid cuts me off.
You're in so much trouble.
Why?
You exposed us on that little story site.
What are you... Oh, you mean Reddit? All I said was my aunt and cousin, not your names or anything. As Entitled Mom said what she said next, I text my boyfriend to come over, so I'm not home alone with her anymore.
It's still slander, and I'll sue you.
And I'm not a brat.
Me internally. Sure you're not. To Bratty Kid. Okay, then why did you demand my drawing tablet and get upset when I said no?
Because it was Christmas, and you should have gotten me something.
Okay, then why didn't you get me anything?
Because you're a spoiled brat. I mean, your grandma got you that tablet, and you technically got it for free.
Me internally. Oh no you didn't. Shouting at Entitled Mom and Bratty Kid. First of all, I grew my drawing technique for years and had to prove that I would use the tablet in the first place. And second, she got it for me because she could afford it. It would have been bigger, but she couldn't afford that. And I wouldn't have asked for one she can't afford, you entitled jerk. A lot of colorful language here. As I'm shouting, I hear a car in the driveway, and my boyfriend knocks on the door and I let him in. New character unlocked. Protective boyfriend. Boyfriend. Hun, what's going on? He grabs my hand to stop me from slapping this lady.
Who the heck are you?
His boyfriend. Got a problem with that? Now, my very religious aunt is upset, and the look on her face can't be described. Imagine you just found out your significant other passed away, but also found out they were cheating on you, so you want to cry, but also want to yell at them. That's almost what her face was.
Bratty kid, let's go. I don't want you coming over here again.
Why?
Because you shouldn't be around these.
Insert not nice slurs.
No. First you insult my artwork. Now you're attacking me for loving someone? No wonder your baby daddy left you.
Ugh, you know what? I'll just wait for your mom to come home. Then you'll really be in trouble for how terrible you made us look.
No, you're leaving now.
Make us.
Protective boyfriend simply cracks his knuckles. Now he isn't that strong, but he is really tall and not fat, just wide. Sorry, babe. Love you.
Me. You do know I take self-defense, right?
Entitled mom says she will come back later to talk with my mom, grabs bratty kid and leaves. Boyfriend calms me down and stays for a bit to make sure I'm not going to hurt my aunt and leaves. It just blows my mind how my aunt claimed I exposed her without even saying her name or mine. Well, I mean, bratty kid is subbed to Mr. Reddit. So, hey bratty kid, say hi to my aunt for me. Edit. I know what I yelled seemed like an overreaction, but drawing is a calming mechanism for my anxiety. Also, my friend group is a bunch of artists, and I'm one of the 3 worst, so I am always easily angered when I sense the smallest insult to my art. Next we've got Karen's card gets declined and wants it free. Hello, Mr. Reddit and Re-Army. It is me again. My brother gave me permission to post this story of his personal experience witnessing a wild Karen. I'm on PC, and English is my first language. Cast goes as follows. We've got CL, my brother. We've got Karen. We've got employee, and we've got awesome manager. Backstory. My brother was enjoying lunch at Wendy's after a nice movie, and all was going pretty well, until he witnessed a wild Karen approaching the cash register about 5 feet away from where he was sitting. The story is told to the best of my abilities with what my brother witnessed. Employee. Good evening, ma'am. What can I get for you today?
I would like to order a burger and fries and a Diet Coke.
No problem. For here or to go?
To go.
Employee rings in the order, and Karen pulls out her card to pay for the meal, but the card is declined. I'm sorry, but the card is being declined.
What? Declined? What do you mean declined?
Brother pops his head up in interest. Oh, this should be good. Like declined as in insufficient funds or something.
That is surely impossible. Let me try again.
The card is declined. Nope. Unfortunately, it didn't go through.
Well, surely I can take the food and pay you tomorrow.
I'm afraid I can't allow that. You won't be receiving your meal if you do not have access to funds.
I want to speak to your manager. You are useless.
Manager arrives as the Karen shriek could be heard from his office. Manager.
What seems to be the problem?
This little jerk won't give me my food, and I'm hungry. And I can pay you back tomorrow, as my card is not working.
I'm sorry, ma'am, but restaurant policy does not allow me to allow anyone to pay it forward to prevent theft.
But do you know who I am? I know the mayor of this city. If you do not give me my food, I will call him and make your life heck and shut this place down.
The manager calls her bluff, as he is pretty good friends with the mayor.
Ma'am, if you do not have the funds, I cannot give you your meal. Now there are customers waiting to order, and we would like to serve them.
Fine. I don't want any of your nasty food anyway. I won't be coming back here anymore.
Karen storms out the door and goes, all the way home. My brother. What the heck did I just witness? Mr. Reddit, I give you full permission to read this on YouTube, and a huge shout out to my brother Chris for providing me with this story and allowing me to share with my fellow Re-Army and Mr. Reddit himself. Your videos are amazing. Keep up the great work. And our final story of the day, entitled Mom Steals My Birthday. I'm not sure if this is a true entitled mom story, but it has the classic promotion of a favorite kid at the expense of another that is the hallmark of entitled mom experiences. Our cast. We've got entitled mom, sadly my own mother. We've got sister-in-law, who is a nice person and was completely unaware of what entitled mom was pulling. And we've got me, the opposite of entitled mom in so many ways. Background. I've always been the black sheep, and entitled mom never particularly liked me, though she went through the motions if anyone other than my siblings were around. She usually played it up for holidays and birthdays, so they weren't so bad for me, though I'd never had a birthday party or anything like that. Sister-in-law and I have birthdays within a few days of each other. Entitled mom tells me that we're having a combined birthday party at my brother's place for the two of us, and it takes place on my birthday as it happens to fall on a Saturday. I get there pretty excited about finally having my first birthday party in my late 20s. Say happy birthday to sister-in-law, who thanks me and bounces off to do host things. Entitled mom is doing the cooking, making the dinner and some special family treats. At loose ends, I go to the kitchen and ask if she needs help. She hands me a cheap box cake mix to make. This irks me a little, because if she had told me earlier, I would have made an incredible chocolate cake from scratch. I'd made it for special occasions with friends before, and it's universally drooled over. But no, I was mixing up a crappy box cake. Later on, when we finished our admittedly delicious dinner, entitled mom brings out the cake with lit candles as you do. She brings it to sister-in-law first. Well, she was sitting closest to the door. That's okay. We sing the birthday song with sister-in-law's name. Sister-in-law blows out the candles, we cheer, and the lights go on, and entitled mom starts cutting the cake. Huh? It's my birthday too. It's my birthday today. That's when I get a good look at the cake. Written in icing on the cake is, Happy Birthday, Sister-in-Law. My name isn't there. My name isn't mentioned.
Wait! No!
Entitled mom tells everyone.
OP helped! She made the cake!
As though I was some idiot kid who had miraculously managed not to screw up mixing a box cake. I mumbled something about how I'd have made a really nice cake if I had known, but sister-in-law was busy receiving and opening her presents, and no one was really listening. No presents for me. I was used to entitled mom neglecting me. That was standard practice, but she had specifically told me it was a party for both of us, repeating it while we were cooking, though, looking back, never when anyone else was in the kitchen with us. Usually a birthday was noted with at least a grunt of acknowledgement, but I guess that year she had a better daughter-in-law as an excuse to put me in my place. I managed not to cry. Well, a little in the bathroom after, but not so anyone noticed. I played along, not wanting to be a jerk and spoil sister-in-law's nice time because she really is a sweetheart. After the party, entitled mom says she'll drive me home, a block and a half, as a way to get me to go with her. In her car, she explains, with insincere sorrow, that sister-in-law hadn't known that the party was for both of us, and she didn't want to mess up sister-in-law's night. Just mine, apparently. Then entitled mom pulls a battered plastic grocery bag out of the back seat and hands it to me. My presents. Not even wrapped, just there in the bag. Clearly, she had never meant the party to include me if she hadn't even bothered to wrap the presents. Probably just kept making sure I was expecting a party to make sure the knife went in nice and deep. That's her style. I didn't show her any emotion. but was holding back a rush of anger and tears with all my strength. I thanked her through clenched teeth, took my presents, a couple of garage sale classical records, which I did like, got out of the car, and walked to my apartment to spend the rest of my birthday alone and finally crying my eyes out. There's no revenge, no karma, and that's just one story of many. I did finally break away from my family within the next year, that incident helping to make the decision, and my life started getting better almost immediately. It's been over 20 years since then, and I haven't regretted that decision once. So maybe my revenge is just living a better life out of entitled mom's claws. Entitled parent tries to return camera, gets the cops called on her. Hello, Mr. Reddit and the Re-Army. I've really enjoyed your YouTube videos the last few months and finally remembered that I have an entitled parent story of my own. I used to work at a Walmart some 10 odd years ago. Originally hired as a cashier, I made the mistake of accepting a position in customer service, so not worth the 25-cent raise. You know all those stereotypical customer horror stories? Yeah, they're true. I've seen many things, both horrible and mind-boggling, but this is the only entitled parent that stands out in memory, mostly because of the results. The worst time to work customer service, or at all really, at Walmart is the 24th of December and the 26th of December. Yep, Christmas Eve and the day after Christmas. I personally call the 26th National Return Your Unwanted Gift Day. It brings out the worst in people, though I found it was oftentimes because it's busy and crowded and would rather be spending time with their family and not because they are entitled or crazy. PSA: while it might not be as personal, gift cards are universal. Let people get what they want and save an associate. This event was over 2 days, the 26th and 27th. Yes, the 27th isn't much better, or the 28th, or the 29th. Our cast: we've got me, Cold Silver D, whose soul has not quite yet been crushed by Blue Box Smart. We've got Poor Kid of Entitled Parent, caught in the crossfire. We've got Entitled Parent. We've got Camera Guy, he's a cool dude. We've got Customer Service Managers, awesome ladies. We've got Support Manager, guy who won't take any BS. All dialogue is approximated. It was more than 10 years ago, but it will get the general gist of it. It's the 26th of December. My coworkers and I had been handling the massive line that went to, and at one point, outside the door. It was a supercenter, Walmart plus full grocery store, so you can imagine just how long that is. Now double it. Poor Kid comes to me with a camera. Generally, if something was under $100, policy ended up being, give it to them. They aren't worth the trouble, as long as it was approved by a CSM or other manager. Sometimes if it was over $100, but not usually. Camera returns, on the other hand, were one of the few policies management backed up 100%, at least at this store when I was there. The procedure was very specific. The registration code for the camera must match both the receipt and the box. Yes, the box too. Then the associate in charge of cameras must approve the return. And that is where it begins. Me. Welcome to Walmart. How may I help you today? Poor Kid.
Yeah, got this camera for Christmas and need to return it.
To this day, I have no idea how or why the camera code matched the receipt but not the box. I honestly don't know if it was a screw up on the vendor's side or Poor Kid and Entitled Parent got two cameras and mixed the boxes up. I'm sorry, but I can't do this return.
What? Why?
The codes for this camera don't match the box. Poor Kid looks at the receipt.
But the code here matches the camera.
I now know that I have to follow procedure completely. To save time, I'll summarize. I call up CG, told him codes didn't match, but the customer is insisting. Not rudely, but still insisting. CG comes down, checks, says no. Poor kid complains. Again, not rudely. I call CSM over. They say the same. No go. I do mention that the camera and receipt match. Still no on both CG and CSM's parts. Poor kid looks disappointed, but took the camera and left. He had no attitude through the whole thing other than annoyance and a little disbelief, and I felt kinda sorry for him. I promptly forgot about it and went back to returns. That, obviously, is not the end of it. The next day, poor kid returns, and this time with his mother, the entitled parent. She did not look pleased and was aggressive and belligerent through the entire thing. I barely managed my greeting when the interaction began.
I want to return this camera. Let me make it clear. I am not happy. My son should have gotten this done yesterday, but you denied him the refund. I live in this location, and it's a chore to come down here.
To note, if I remember correctly, the place was a suburb, maybe a half an hour drive, which in that area is not that far, relatively speaking. I personally had a 10-minute drive, and I lived literally up the street. Weather was fine that day, so while there was snow on the ground, it had been plowed and the walks were salted. So annoying, but not as bad as she was making it out to be. Thinking, here we go again, I follow procedure. I glance at the receipt, camera, and box. Yep, nothing changed magically overnight. I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can't return this. The codes don't match.
BS. Return it. I bought it here, and you have to refund it.
I'm sorry, but policy says I can't. I have to get camera department's approval, and since they said no yesterday, I can tell you they won't approve it today.
I don't care. Do it anyway.
I sigh and call camera guy.
Camera department.
Hey camera guy, it's Cold Silver D from customer service. You remember that camera from yesterday? They're back.
Seriously?
Yup, code on receipt and camera matches, but box doesn't.
Did you tell them about the policy?
Yup, still demands the return.
I'll be right up.
When he arrives, I hand him the camera and he does his thing.
I'm sorry, but policy is that we cannot return a camera unless all 3 of the codes match. No exceptions.
What? How can 2 match, but the 3rd doesn't?
Since it's the receipt and the camera that match, that argument is actually somewhat valid.
Sorry, no exceptions.
I want to see your manager.
I sigh, knowing that this is going to play out the same as yesterday, and call over CSM. CSM. How can I help you, ma'am? It was a different CSM from the day before, so she wasn't aware of the situation. Entitled parent goes off on her. Staying calm, CSM responds verbatim what camera guy had just said.
What do you mean you can't return it? How can the codes not match? This is BS. I want this returned. I bought it here, and I want my refund. I want to speak to your manager.
There was a lot of language and a few insults mixed in, but I don't remember specifics. After I explained to CSM about the previous day, she radios for SM. All the while, the argument continues to circle. SM was a great support manager. He treated us with respect, was tough but fair, and was a great guy to work with. One thing about him, he was retired Navy. Not a SEAL or anything hardcore, but he was tough, and he did not take any BS. You did not mess with his associates. SM.
How may I help you today, ma'am?
Your useless employees won't return this camera. I bought it here, and I demand a refund, especially after all this trouble.
Please calm down, ma'am. Tell me what is going on.
I give him a brief rundown, again mentioning the matching camera and receipt, but not the box. Then she gives her side.
What did camera guy say?
Not all 3 match, so he said no.
Then I'm sorry, ma'am. Policy says we cannot return this camera unless all 3 match.
She goes ballistic. From then on, it was the same circular argument, but with a lot more language. The longer it went on, the louder it got. Finally, SM had enough.
Ma'am, I'm sorry. Unless you calm down, I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
She gets in his face, yelling up a storm. If she hadn't been causing a scene before, she really was now. He just remained neutral the entire time, but he had had enough. He escalated it. It's the busiest day/time for customer service department, and she is holding up the line completely now. She needs to go.
Ma'am, you will leave right now or I will call the police.
No, you won't. I bought this here. I have the receipt, so I am entitled to my refund. Give me my money back. Now!
Ma'am, I am not bluffing. I will call the police if you do not leave now.
Yeah, right. Like I really believe that. Give me my refund.
SM then pulls out his cell and calls the non-emergency number. After addressing the police and explaining the situation, she realized he was not bluffing. She left in a hurry, yelling the entire time. I had lost track of poor kid and the entire thing, but I assume he followed. Once she was gone, SM told the police she had left and weren't needed anymore. Funny thing, she didn't take the camera with her, so no refund, and now she doesn't have the camera either. And she is banned from the store, so she can't come back for it either. Next we've got My Entitled Parent Saga, Episode 1. Mr. Reddit, first, let me say thank you so much for putting my first post in one of your videos. I got a real kick out of it, and so did my family. This story is about my entitled mother. Disclaimer: on computer, English and bad English are my only 2 languages. Spelling and grammar errors are entirely my fault. This also happened 20 years ago and spanned a few months, so no real dialogue. Sorry about that. Cast: we've got me, youngest son, in my late 30s now. We've got my older entitled brother, pushing 40 now. We've got awesome dad, coolest and nicest guy I ever met. And we've got entitled mom. I don't know how awesome dad stayed with her for so long. Finally divorced her recently. Background: entitled mom has always favored entitled brother. He has been the golden child our entire lives up until the past couple years in her eyes. You know, the kid who gets everything handed to him on a silver platter while the other kid gets ignored. Awesome dad has always tried to treat us fairly and equally, but entitled mom has always made that difficult. My brother and I shared a room growing up. There are lots of examples of this, and I'll post more if people want to hear them. On to the story. When I was a teenager, being 2 years younger than my brother, I saw a lot of bias by my mother against me. When I was 12, I started working, mowing lawns, walking dogs, riding to the store to get elderly neighbors their groceries, etc., and saved enough money to buy myself a little garbage Honda Civic. I did some work on it and then traded it for an early 70s Volkswagen Beetle. When my brother turned 15, my mother helped him get his learner's permit and then traded my Beetle for a Volkswagen Rabbit Diesel, which she gave him as a gift for his 16th birthday. I turned 14 2 months after he got his car. About 2 weeks before my birthday, my mom bought an '86 gray Toyota Celica GT that didn't run and told me it would be my car when I turned 16. I was excited and started working on it. My father is a mechanic and taught me a lot. I got the car running well using my money to replace the starter, battery, plugs, wires, fuel lines, etc. I then replaced the driver's seat and some interior trim on the car. When I was 15, I was ready to get my permit. At this time, my mother decided not to let me get it, as she
was too busy to drive with me and just didn't want to.
She did not work at this time, and I did most of the housework, including laundry, cleaning, and dishes. My father, who worked 60 hours a week, tried to convince her to let me get my license, but she refused. At this time, she stopped driving her Lincoln much and started driving my Celica everywhere. I turned 16 without license or permit and still trying to convince her to let me get it. The week after my birthday, my brother, who is now 18, had no job and lived at home, was hot rodding his Volkswagen, and no surprise, it broke down. My mom decided to buy him an '87 red Toyota Celica. She thought it was great that her and my brother had matching cars. One more year passed. I was 17 and still didn't have my license. My mom was still driving my Celica and barely driving her Lincoln. My brother had failed out of high school and was going to an alternative school. He started getting into bad things and partying with all of his friends in the alternative school. That Christmas, my only Christmas present from my mom was that she said we could go down the next week and finally get my permit. The very next weekend, 2 days after I got my permit, my brother was at a pasture party with his friends and decided to drive home. You can guess where this is going. He was lucky he didn't end up in the hospital, but the car was totaled. If you're thinking that my mom gave him my Celica, you'd be right. The next week, she handed him the keys to it, and they went down and put it in his name. Now, legally, they could do that, because since I was a minor, the car was in her name to begin with. Legally, they could, but morally, it was just wrong. She did start driving with me at this point, every once in a while, in her Lincoln. I asked her what I was going to do for a car, as she sold my first one and then gave my brother my second one. Her response was,
"You work. Buy yourself another car."
This got very hard, as right after New Year's, she made me quit my job, and a couple weeks later, she cleared out my bank account. Almost $1,800 to pay for a trip she took halfway across the country. I did have $400 that I had stashed between the pages of a book in my room a couple months earlier. I was wanting to buy a special gift for my mom for Mother's Day that next year. As if. Having only $400 and no income, I had to take what I could get, and so I bought an old Oldsmobile Cutlass. My brother moved out right after his 20th birthday to move in with a friend right down the road. I was able to finally get my license 1 month before I turned 18. I also graduated from high school 3 weeks before my birthday. My brother, who is 2 years and 2 months older than me, graduated from his alternative school 1 day before I did. 3 days after I graduated, my mom decided she wanted to turn my room into a hobby room and kicked me out. I had no money and nowhere to go, but she gave me 1 week to figure it out. My girlfriend, who became my wife and is the love of my life, and her family welcomed me with open arms, and I lived with them for almost a year. Just a week after I was kicked out, my brother and his friend moved into my room and stayed there for about 6 months. My mother never even started turning it into her hobby room and admitted years later that she kicked me out because she wanted my brother and his friend to have the room. She has never to this day paid me back 1 red cent for the 2 cars she took from me or the bank account she cleared out. She says I should be grateful that she only took that much to pay her back for all she spent raising me. In the 20 years since the end of this story, she has bought my brother 4 other cars, given him thousands of dollars, and bailed him out of jail over a dozen times. I've never asked her for anything, and she has taken much more from me over the years, but that is another story. If you made it this far, thank you so much for reading, and sorry it was so long-winded. And our final story of the day. Sorry if my workplace doesn't take your currency, entitled person. Hey, Mr. Reddit. Listening to all the entitled parent stories every day, going to and from work, and can't stop laughing at the voices you do. And boy, do I deal with a lot of entitled people. So more posts if you enjoy it. I'm on mobile, so excuse the grammar errors. We'll do updates on it when I can. English is my first language, so don't roast me too bad. Thanks. On to the story. Our cast. We've got me. We've got awesome customer. We've got entitled man. And finally, we've got awesome coworker. A little bit of background. So I only started working at this job a while ago, 3 months to be exact, and we used to always take this certain currency until recently where the currency had new notes that had a different covering on it instead of what it used to be, so we don't accept the old notes of said currency. Anyway, on to the story, and this only happened yesterday during my work shift. Awesome coworker and myself were working away as a rush had just come in from a lot of flights. Yes, I work at an airport. So awesome coworker served entitled man and didn't know about not taking the old notes. So anyway, I was busy with my own queue of people when lo and behold, I get to entitled lady. I scan her stuff through, not a bother, and once I've gotten her total, she goes to give me the old currency, and I attempt to explain why we don't take the old notes, but she's not having any of it and shoves the stuff at me and goes in anger. Awesome customer comes up next, wondering what that was about. I explain it briefly while serving him when all you hear by the window is dear old entitled man.
What's the problem with taking the currency? It's the new one.
Me, trying to keep calm and not from breaking down. I don't deal well with being yelled at. Sorry, it's just that we don't take this currency anymore. But he's not having it.
You were talking down to my wife, and you can take your stuff back.
He goes back to where he was sitting prior to this point, I guess to save a seat, and then proceeds to slam the food and drinks he had bought.
I want the money I paid him.
Pointing to awesome coworker.
And I want it now.
All of this was going down during a major rush, so we're trying to get everyone served as quickly as possible. Awesome coworker tries to explain as well, but entitled man is having none of it. But he gives him back the money he gave him, but due to the fact of how rude he was, awesome coworker slams it onto the window, and of course, as we all know, entitled people always have something to say.
You can shove it where the sun don't shine.
Me, being absolutely done with him at this point. I'm surprised you know where that is, cause you don't know when to keep your mouth shut and let someone explain something that you clearly don't understand. Now I know I went a bit too far, but after all the screaming he did at me and awesome coworker, he kinda deserved it for being a jerk. Anyway, that's one of the many entitled parent stories I have from my new job. There's plenty more where that came from, and I know this post probably suits better in r/tales from retail, but it was an entitled person, so I thought it would be better here. I used the rules of the church to take vengeance on an entitled teacher after she humiliated me for years. Hello, Mr. Reddit. I hope you are well. Just a heads up, this is a bit long, and I am dyslexic, so please forgive any mistakes that are found. I'm going to call entitled teacher Umbridge because she was literally the real-life Dolores Umbridge from Harry Potter. So, for a bit of background, I'm Northern Irish, and here, religion is a bit of a big deal. Not as important as decades past, but still. Basically, if your family is Catholic or Protestant, it can determine your whole lifestyle. Where you live, where you go to school, what groups you can join, what party you support, even who you marry. I'm what's known as a halfer, meaning my father's family are Protestant and my mother's family are Catholic. My sister and I ended up being raised Catholic because even though my parents nor my father's family are very religious, my mother's family is. So we got sent to Catholic schools. And some of the teachers we've had were the kind of crazy that you try to keep far away from. This story stars one teacher from high school. So as well as being dyslexic, I also have Asperger's syndrome, and I wasn't diagnosed until high school. My mom was terrified of me getting bullied in high school. Because of it, she made it very clear to my teachers that they're not to make a big deal out of it. About 2 weeks into my first year, I got called out of class to meet my counselor, Mr. Hazard, crazy teacher number 2, not very important to the story, and my year head, Umbridge. They said they wanted to explain to me and my friends about my Asperger's and dyslexic so that we could understand it a bit better. I didn't really understand it myself at the time. Mom didn't want me becoming paranoid about it, so only wanted me to have the essential details until I was older. And I had only 2 friends, so I said I would like that. The next day, my whole class, which was about 50 kids, small school, was called to an assembly, all about me. My autism, as they repeatedly said instead of Asperger's, which is much less severe. How that meant I would be a bit odd, and how everyone should be nice to me, and so on. It was unspeakably embarrassing. I was not at all like what they were describing, and enough time had passed that everyone knew about it. Afterward, every student in the year took turns to come up to me and say how sorry they were that I had to go through that. Even the mean girls that didn't like me, and the boy I had a crush on. My mom was furious, but Umbridge just said that I had asked them to do it, and they were only trying to help me. This is how Umbridge worked. If she wanted to do something, even if she had been told not to do it by a parent or student, she'll go ahead and do it under this manipulative guise of, "I'm your teacher, I'm just trying to help you." This was the first major incident of 2 amongst many other smaller times when parents didn't get involved, but incident number 2 was the one that took the cake. By 6th year, I was junior head girl and my grades were some of the top in the school. I worked hard for all that, and I had some great teachers that weren't Hazard or Umbridge who supported me. Umbridge was so proud of me and loved to brag that I was the mentally disabled girl who her school got to come out of her shell and raise to success. I was a means to an end for this woman, something to make her look good. One night, me and my 2 friends had a sleepover at my house. Without my parents knowing, we made and played a Ouija board. I know, stupid, risky, don't mess with demons and ghosts, yada yada. Trust me, I'm getting to that. And just to let you know, nothing came of it, and I even still sleep in that room. So about a week later, I got to school, having basically forgotten about the Ouija board, and the whole place is buzzing. I'm wondering what was going on when one of the second years runs up to me and asks all panicky,
"OP, are you really a witch? Umbridge is telling everyone that you are."
Yup, not joking or exaggerating. Umbridge had somehow found out about what happened in my home and was blowing it up. I felt cold, and one of my friends who was still at the same school as me met me at the canteen and wanted to know what was going on. Neither of my friends had told anyone, and we had no idea what had happened. Only my name was being thrown around, not hers or other friends, and my friend was ready to punch Umbridge. We decided to try to be fair and talk to Umbridge ourselves. We made our way to the teacher's room and past the principal's office on the way. We found my mother. The school had called my mother, and she was laughing? Apparently, when Umbridge called my mom, she just said,
"We need to talk about something your daughter has done."
So she sat my mom down with the principal, who also wasn't aware of what was going on, and Mr. Hazard. Mom says that her exact words were,
"Mrs. OP, are you aware that your daughter is in a cult?"
Mom burst out laughing, and the 3 teachers were silent. Umbridge and Mr. Hazard in disgust, and the principal in shock at the accusations. Umbridge insisted my mom take this seriously, and that
she has a very reliable source who says that OP was trying to summon the devil with the Ouija board at a sleepover last week.
Umbridge had details she should never have had, like that we had made the board out of paper and a shot glass, That is scarier than the ghosts.
Mom laughed harder.
Umbridge, you've known OP since she was 11. You watched her grow up. You should know better than that. I totally believe that she played a Ouija board, but never summoned the devil. If me and my husband had known at the time, her father would have made her a proper Ouija board out of wood.
Yup, that's how serious my parents took religion and the supernatural.
Umbridge got laughed out, and the principal apologized, saying,
"This should have never happened.
and,
We are not that kind of school, or those kind of Catholics.
and,
I have teenage daughters too, who have posters of vampires and werewolves in their rooms. I know teenagers don't take this stuff seriously."
Mom left, still laughing, and Umbridge and Hazard, I assume, got a long lecture from their boss. Not that it helped. My hard-earned reputation was in ruins. I got teased and stupid comments for months after. I don't know what Umbridge was thinking doing this. I mean, she loves having the
I'm higher than thou
stance and talking down to students about menial things. But this was taking it too far. And then Advent came. In case you don't know, Advent is a series of church services in the weeks leading up to Christmas. A kind of pre-Christmas, except without presents or fun. And every Advent and Easter, Umbridge would make her year walk across town to attend her church's services. She couldn't make us go every week as she would like to, but come heck or high water, she will get us there for the major holidays. Now this is the stage for my revenge. I have a really awesome godfather, more like an uncle to me. He is a very religious man. He became a priest some years ago. Here's what I imagine a good Catholic to be. He's the most kind, generous, and forgiving person I know. He's also the most supportive person you can ask for when it comes to religion. This is very important, and it'll all come together. Don't worry. When I was a kid, I was an altar girl for the same church that Umbridge attended. The first ever, as I was told. It was another thing she loved to brag about. When I started to stop believing in God, I felt terrible. I thought that I was about to hurt the priest I served, Father McCannon, but I still wanted to quit being an altar girl. I turned to my godfather for advice, and he told me something very important. First, that Father McCannon won't be hurt and will understand how I feel. Second, forcing anyone, even yourself, to keep praying to God when they don't truly believe is not supported by the church. He told me the story of the prodigal son who wandered from God and home, but returned truly seeking forgiveness. He told me that the point is that it's okay to not believe God, and I'll always have someone to turn to if I need. He was right. When I talked to Father McCannon, he just smiled and said he understood. My godfather also taught me a little trick to use if anyone tried to force me to church, or more especially, to take Holy Communion when I didn't want to. At last, my vengeance. So Umbridge makes us walk across town to church in the winter and no coats because
You're all representing the school, and your uniforms must be perfect.
everyone hates this. We had exams to study for and didn't like being yanked out of class. So as everyone is filing out of the cold, I already had everything planned in my head. But I decided to give Umbridge a chance. I waited until everyone else had gone in, then approached her. Miss, I was just wondering, for Holy Communion, can we just sit down? I just don't feel it's very respectful for me to take it when I don't really believe anymore. Holy Communion, for any of you non-Catholics reading, is basically the most important part of Catholic Mass. Everyone lines up, and the priest says a little prayer with each individual, then gives them a small circle of holy bread to eat. It's a way to honor the Last Supper and remember Jesus dying on the cross. Umbridge looked like I had just walked up and slapped her across the face out of nowhere.
OP, you are head girl of a Catholic school and representing us in front of the whole community. You will take Holy Communion.
With that, she marched me into the church and set me in the front row. Well, I tried to be nice. So the first half goes as normal. I got away with staying quiet throughout all the prayers and songs. Then it came to Holy Communion. There were 3 teachers escorting us, and they lined up first to be free to herd us teenagers up to the altar. I was first after the teachers, and as I stood, I happily noted that the church was packed. Not one free seat anywhere. I also happily noted the priest conducting the service was Father McCannon. So I approached with my hands on my shoulders, arms crossed. That's the trick. And next to no one knows about it, where I come from anyway. It's literally a way to tell the priest, I'm just here out of respect, but I'm not participating. Seeing me made the father pause. Then I saw he recognized me. I said, "Hello, Father McCannon," with a smile that said I knew what I was doing. He gave me the same kind smile that he gave me years ago, made the sign of the cross over my head while muttering a small prayer, and let me sit back down. On my way, I saw everyone's faces. They were all thinking the same thing. What is she doing? Umbridge's face was the best. Just to explain why this revenge was so good. Of course, this was Umbridge's church, and everyone in attendance, not with the school, knew each other and talked to each other. Of course, she talked about me. She would even bring me over sometimes to introduce me.
Have you met my head girl from my school? She has autism and we're so proud of how far she's come. Did you know she used to be an altar girl?
So I concluded that if she was talking about me so much, then naturally, the devil child incident hadn't passed without at least a mention. Probably being more anonymous about who, because of all the boasting she liked to do. What I had basically done was planted the idea of the truth, if not outright outed myself as the rumored devil child, her beloved head girl. If I hadn't made a connection between me and the occult thing, well, getting a blessing instead of communion is a scandal in itself. I sat back down with a big smile on my face. After church was over, we started back to school. One of the other teachers, another really awesome guy and my favorite teacher, came up behind me and said, "Excuse me, missus, but what the heck did you do?" My smile never wavered. When I crossed my arms like I did, it told the father that I didn't want communion, but I meant no disrespect. "That's it?" That's it. He was smiling now too. He knew me and knew the real reason why I wouldn't take communion. "Umbridge is furious with you. She is staying behind to talk to Father McCannon right now." Let her know I didn't do anything wrong, and I gave her a fair chance before Mass started. He laughed, and I spent the whole walk back to the school repeating to myself about why I got special treatment to my fellow students. I made it clear that I didn't just do it to get back at Umbridge, but because I found it disrespectful to make people take communion when they don't believe. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who had an issue with religion, and many simply didn't know that they had a choice. I could see the wheels turning in their heads when I said that anyone could do it. So it's not just because you used to be an altar girl? Anyone can seriously do it? Even me? For the first time ever, we all hoped Umbridge would force us to church the following week. Of course she did. And of course, she ordered me to take my Holy Communion, and I had better not pull the same stunt again. Obviously, she had gotten nowhere with Father McCannon last week, and obviously had no explanation from her friends on Sunday. Of course I did it again, and the whole class joined me. Around 50-something sixth-year students lined up and got blessings, and no one got communion, all grinning like fools. We've all been burned by Umbridge at some point or another. Now we were burning back in the most personal way. She had lost all authority over us in her favorite house. I honestly think she lost it a little after, because she was never the same. The following week, Umbridge called an assembly and gave a speech filled with crocodile tears.
How could you do this to me? After all I've done for you kids, you humiliated me and the school in front of the whole community. My mother was attending last week, Do any of you understand how you made me look? I demand that you all apologize right now. Say you're sorry.
Silence. She couldn't force even one fake sorry from any of us. She looked to the other teachers for help, but they just shrugged. What could they do? She was the year head, not them. Did she want them to give the whole year detention? Suspend us? We technically haven't done anything wrong. Umbridge had lost. She got no empathy from anyone. But before dismissing us, she did announce that Father Black, not Father McCannon, would be coming to the school to conduct Mass, and everyone will attend and take communion or else.
Except for you, OP. You can stay set down.
It was a small victory, but for most of us, it wasn't enough. Father Black's Mass was that afternoon. Chairs were lined up, and a temporary altar was made in the PE hall. Father Black was a young, new priest, and he was coming in to replace Father McCannon, who planned to retire. He was actually a really chill guy and loved telling stories. I did feel bad that this was his first impression of our school. I think Umbridge wanted to try to get the new guy on her side while he was still getting to know everyone. That service was hilarious. The arm crossing thing really was the vengeance that kept on giving. Once again, Umbridge and the teachers went first for Holy Communion, and the kids were lined up. Some students thought that Umbridge had had enough, and they didn't want to make a bad first impression with Father Black. Most didn't care. I sat there trying to contain my laughter as Umbridge ran up and down the line like a frazzled chicken, forcing people to put their arms down only for them to put them back up when she walked away. Eventually, Umbridge just started telling people to sit back down. These were just the normal handful of troublemakers who just wanted to mess with her. Everyone else, though, waited until they got right in front of Father Black, though we were delighted that I got to stay sit down and happy to take it. We knew Umbridge hadn't learned her lesson about respect, and we were still rebels. Poor Father Black. He knew the meaning of the arm crossing, and seeing so many students doing it was probably making him wonder if he was definitely in a Catholic school. Afterward, Umbridge chased everyone but the prefects out of the hall, and us prefects were made to tidy away the chairs. A couple of good teachers did stay to help us. Umbridge had pulled Father Black into the hall after he put away all his things. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I could see her through the window in the double doors. Her face was desperate and flustered as she talked. Father Black just looked like he wanted to leave. I did feel terrible for him, and when he walked away and I saw Umbridge taking a deep breath, she was gearing up to come and rant at us again. I told one of the teachers with us that I was going to the bathroom real quick and rushed out the other door after Father Black. I caught him at the reception and I explained what was going on while apologizing between every other sentence. Father Black just laughed, looking really relieved. "Oh, I thought it was just me. I thought it was because I was the new guy. I was really worried." He gave me his approval for standing up for ourselves, and that's when Umbridge came marching up the hall like an angry bull rhino. I apologized again a bit louder for the receptionist to hear, and he said also a bit louder, "It's okay. God bless you, my child." He practically ran out the door. Umbridge caught up to me.
Why are you not in the hall? What did you say to Father Black?
I just apologized to him. I felt bad he had to go through that. The receptionist jumps in to back me up on what I said, as she had been focusing on the computer until then.
Well then, what about me?
Umbridge demands. Sorry, miss?
Don't you think you owe me an apology? Because of your actions, you embarrassed the school in front of the town, Father McCannon, and now Father Black. Don't you think you should at least say that you're sorry? You should count your blessing that you're still junior head girl. I have half a mind to suspend you if I weren't so fond of you.
Fond of me, she says. I remember glancing at the receptionist's face. The, am I really hearing this? Face.
Come now, think, OP, of how much support this school has given you over the years. How many times I've helped you over the years. Don't you feel bad? This stunt has gone too far. Don't you think that you should at least say that you were wrong and say you're sorry?
Oh, I remember. I remember that manipulative tone and all the help she's given me. I actually started to feel bad until she reminded me how she wrongly outed me as autistic in the most grand way. How she needlessly had me followed and babied for years. Every time I had to make small talk with some perfect strangers because she wanted to brag about my accomplishments. How even a month ago she told everyone I was a witch. Now she expected me to swallow my pride and say that I'm sorry like a good little doormat because I gave her a taste of her own medicine? I don't think so. I glared at her. I glared at her so viciously that she actually took a step back. I owe you nothing. I walked away without being dismissed. Umbridge and receptionist were left in stunned silence. I didn't look at people like that. I didn't talk to teachers like that. I was OP, the good girl, the one that was always polite, that always followed the rules to the letter, the one who always did as I was told, and spoke to my year head with so much hate. Naturally, I didn't get head girl the next year, which everyone said was bull. I didn't care. I had worse stuff to worry about by then. That's several entirely different stories. I didn't spread any rumors. I just told anyone that asked the truth, that Umbridge just didn't get it. She didn't understand why we decided to turn on her. And they told others, their friends, and siblings in other, younger years. When I said that she was never the same before, this was why. Her students didn't listen to her anymore. Her colleagues could barely stand her anymore. I cannot empathize how important people's opinions were to her. I haven't met anyone that knew her as a teacher that doesn't swear that she went a little mad in those last 3 years. Would it surprise any of you that, until then, Umbridge had been the religious studies teacher at our school? I think you would be as surprised as we were when she became the science teacher when one of the elder ones retired. No one had any idea how this happened. She immediately set up a little altar next to the door of the science room with a little bowl of holy water and made students bless themselves as they came in and out. She taught the Big Bang Theory like,
Listen, children, you have to know this to pass your exams, but don't take it seriously.
Grades in science got so bad, they actually brought in another science teacher to pick up the slack. Miss Lynn was very nice, but very strict. She looked out for my youngest sister after I left school. Umbridge even became vice principal, and she used that position to turn a study room in the library into an oratory, a little room you can go to pray in whenever you want. It was never used. She made Father Black come back to the school every major holiday, and at the end and start of the years to hold mass, and even got the bishop to visit, who I had a very awkward meeting with. The old man patted my head, then just stood there talking with Umbridge, the principal, and Father Black with his hand on top of my head for like 10 minutes. Again and again, she had local newspapers come and report on the school sports team wins, high exam results, every sports day. If it was noteworthy enough for a small county newspaper, she made sure they talked about it. And of course, she slipped herself into every photo. Not even the principal did that. Joke was on her though. Her mention in articles basically amounted to, on the far right of the picture is Vice Principal Umbridge. We don't know why she's there. The more she tried to shove religion down our throat, the more she tried to take credit for our accomplishments. The students pushed back against her more and more, and people just started to tune her out. The higher position she shoved her way into, the more ridiculous and mad she made herself look. Kids that came to the school after us were told by their older siblings that Umbridge was crazy and not to listen to a word she said. After I left, she and Hazard actually had the nerve to try and go after my 2 younger sisters, like they expected them to be more passive than their big sister. Nope. I'm actually the quiet one of the 3. My sisters didn't take any of what they tried to dish out. If they try to push something on them to which was out of their control, like a detention or a suspension for someone else's issues, they didn't hesitate to get our mom involved. I usually handled these problems myself very well when it was me and rarely got mom involved, but my sisters never saw the point in trying to do it themselves when mom did such a sublime job. Mom is a very, very scary woman. You just don't mess with her babies. By the time she retired, Umbridge was a broken woman. She was honored by the school for 30 years of work, but I heard the ceremony was quite half-hearted. Things most definitely improved after she left. The school got some money and a lot of old rooms got redone and updated. I wouldn't say that I planned all of that initially. I was happy just to humiliate her in front of the whole congregation with the priest and all of my year backing me. But I think I was the one that started it all. Definitely I can say that no one felt sorry for her in the end. I met one of the ladies that still works in that school canteen today at work, and I asked if she remembered Umbridge calling me a witch that one time. Her response was, "Umbridge? Oh, that woman was a cow." Mom once brought my godfather to one of my sister's parent-teacher meetings in full priest getup. Umbridge apparently broke down in tears with delight and said,
OP is so lucky to have such a good influence on her life.
"Ha, that's the man that taught me every trick I used against you, Umbridge. Still, you're not wrong." Edit. We did eventually learn about how Umbridge found out about our Ouija board. You see, those two friends and me were also senior members of what is essentially our version of Girl Scouts. We were there the night after the sleepover and were talking about the board in the bathroom when we thought we were alone. Turns out, one of the counselors had also been listening at the door. She told my old primary school principal, and he called Umbridge at my high school. It was all done very quietly, so there's a whole network of crazies out to get us. Lovely. You Can't Stop Stupid 3.5, the update spree. Holy donuts, everyone. It's your favorite oversized Army General Security Guard here, D Fat Man. Here to tell you a few updates to some of my previous posts, since I know a few of you wonder what happened to the members of the entitled army that I have encountered over the years. As per the normal, my previous warnings are still applied, and my previous stories will be linked at the bottom. Now, this post has been broken up a little to keep each section self-contained so they don't run into each other. I will try my best to give context where I can for which events I'm giving updates on, so I will try to break them up with these symbols. With all that out of the way, let's get this shindig going. Flood wall, Miss Virago. Now, I have seen some comments ask if the kid was alright jumping in river water like he did, and I'm here to say, the kid is alright. How do I know this? I've had a few more run-ins since then, namely 3 that come to mind, as well as some foobarring going on because of her, and I will explain. Since the city had taken over the flood wall, I no longer needed to be down there, so I went about my business and had worked at other locations, much like a power company or at a baseball diamond. Most of the time, I would sit in my car listening to music or play stuff on my phone tablet. Nothing too big to keep my focus completely trained on, so I can always keep what I'm watching in my field of view. Well, this was about a month since the flood wall when this Miss Virago decided to rear her ugly head. I swear to no end that I sensed this lady coming. It's like you would see in cartoons or TV shows when some characters would talk about another and it would cut over to them as they sneeze. It was kind of like that. It seems after dealing with enough of these entitled idiots, I gained some kind of entitled sense or something. But regardless, I was sitting at the ball diamond making sure people wouldn't hop the fence or spray the wall. Something we've had issues with before. Well, that's when I felt the dreaded Rheosaurus Rex come as a cold shiver ran up my spine. Like someone was dancing on my grave or something of that sort. That's when I heard it.
Ew.
My eyes widened as I heard the lady growl at me. I turned to see her coming up from behind me in the parking lot. Behind her was her husband and son. The former looked like he wanted to bail as soon as the crazy switch was flipped, and I could not blame him one bit. The first thing I did as soon as I see this lady come towards me was turn on my car and roll up my windows to keep Miss Shove-and-Smack from hitting me. If this lady is crazy enough to slap something out of a cop's hand, I sure as heck know she would do the same thing to me. Of course, it wouldn't be the first time, and won't be the last time.
You will get out of this car and face me like a man.
The heck I will. Her husband. Dear, leave the guard alone. We don't have the money to bail you out again.
No, he humiliated me and got me arrested.
Me. No, you did that all by yourself. I was only doing my job. Her husband. Honey, let's go. The husband at this time tried to pull Miss Virago away from my car, which worked for about a few seconds before she decided to drop him to his knees after stomping on his foot and nailing him in the royal twins. Even I had to wince, as I swear I could feel that from the car. Is it just me, or does every guy feel the hit when they see another guy get nailed there? I digress. As soon as she was free and tried to get after me, taking the smart route, I decided to call the cops, and after a bit of telling them what's going on. So after a bit, while this woman was trying to get at me, even going as far as trying to punch her way through the window, the cops show up, and the best bit of sweet justice is that she ended up getting tased. You have no idea how enjoyable it was for me to watch this. After that, the cop takes my statement and the husband's as she's dragged off to be arrested. Again. I had asked the husband why was she so gung-ho after me. After I was able to help him up to his feet, because that was a hard hit from what he had told me. He explained that after being arrested twice, word got around about what happened. I'm not sure how it did, but nonetheless, it did, and it seems that it got brought up one too many times. Me. Why did you bail her out after the second time? I wanted to know, mostly because it just seems crazy to me. Her husband. It's just that I'm the only working parent, and I didn't have anyone to watch our son. Because of her, I'm guessing? Yeah. Then why don't you just divorce her and find someone new? A lot of people say I am a very blunt and to-the-point person. That's when this bomb gets dropped on me. He's in the middle of doing that, secretly from his wife's knowledge. Part of this was because he got a job offer in a different city and he's going to take it, which I don't blame him one bit. So after a few moments talking to him, the husband leaves with his son, since they wanted to see if they could get tickets to one last game. So before shipping off, I gave the kid one of my extra sodas I keep in my car for these shifts after I got the father's approval. So they head off, and I go back to my shift. Now, the other time I dealt with this woman was at least a month after this event, but for a different reason. After she was freed from jail, she began to call into my job at the time and complain about me at the site. There was a small problem with this, however. She kept referring to the locations that I haven't been to in over a month, as the city had taken over due to the cleanup. So this all leads up to one of my supervisors coming to me while I was on shift and handing me the complaints, which I looked over and pointed out a key detail. As I said, the location where I haven't been in over a month. So after checking to see if it was the same lady, which they confirmed it was, they said they will have the complaints dropped. Since then, I hadn't heard about this lady, which was a relief. Tulip, Mrs. Harridan. Now, Mrs. Harridan here is a classic case of an entitled lady's scorn. Sadly for her, she decided to unleash this upon the one guy who was prepared. Now, for a too long didn't read version of the original post. After I told her son to leave my dad's tulips alone, he got his mother to come back, where I ended up getting her with a bullhorn by making her walk off in a huff. This takes place a few weeks afterward from this, and well into the summer at this point. That night, we had an incident where my dad's tulips were destroyed, something that didn't go over well with him. Now, for quite some time, We had cameras installed for things like this. As I said in previous posts, I talked about kids doing some rather mean things, but on top of that, we've had break-ins to cars, and on top of that, stuff stolen. So this was mainly the reason why we had a total of 10 cameras pointed to cover every part of the yard, front and back. But we made sure that the cameras were not in sight if you were trying to look for them. We were pretty sneaky with the placement of the cameras. Now that night in the video, you can see a woman come up and start ripping out the tulips out of the flower bed, all but the one, which that one was dug out and put in a flower pot before said person walked off camera. The problem was that this was during the night, and the night vision mode didn't have a good enough focus to catch her face well enough, but it did catch enough of the outfit. We ended up calling the cops and had a police report done. We figured nothing will come from it, as I had explained to the cops who I thought it may be, that being Mrs. Harridan, but I was told that the image wasn't good enough to tell who it was, which annoyed me, but I can sort of understand this. Roll around a few days later, I decided to sit outside again and was reading, mostly because I wanted to get out of the basement. Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, for those that are curious. Well, I'm sitting there reading till I notice a shadow from someone walking up to me. I looked up to see Mrs. Harridan standing there, smug as ever.
Shame, what happened to your tulips?
Yeah. Something about her was striking a note in the back of my head, and using my phone, I pulled up the footage from the other night. Mostly if I saw the same outfit again, which for me, this lady was wearing the same outfit, even the same hairstyle.
Were they able to figure out who did it?
It depends on who you mean by they. This annoyed her, and I so enjoyed it.
Well, the cops. Duh.
She said this in a very childish way. Not yet. At this point, I had the cameras up on my phone and with the free hand pointed up to my camera just out of sight of the lady.
What are you pointing at?
All I did was smirk at her as she moved closer to look at the camera I had set up this angle, just to keep an eye on packages that show up in the mail. Mostly because I order a lot for my family or myself, and we've had the next door neighbor steal them from us before. But regardless, after she sees the camera, I watched as she suddenly went ash white. Oh, I'm just pointing at the camera that caught the person that did it. After that, she ran off, and to make this a bit shorter, she ended up getting arrested and had to pay for new tulips. Sucks to be her. Tee-hee. D Fat Man versus A Fat Man, or Return of Piglet. 13 years. After 13 years, I end up running into this entitled jerk again. Let me give you some needed context, because this was one of those days that I kind of wish didn't happen. For those wondering, this was about 5 days after my last post talking about this person. The world has that funny and slightly mean-spirited way of doing people over. This was one of those cases. So something I didn't say in the last post was the aftermath of being maced. Mrs. Piggy did get arrested, and I don't remember the charges as it was 13 years ago. While I may have a good memory of some events, it's not perfect, and I will never claim it to be. What I do remember is that she took a plea of insanity, which, with how much of a religious nut she was, I could totally believe it. So, in the end, Mrs. Piggy was committed and labeled crazy. I don't mean that whole, oh, she's just crazy. No, I mean having to take meds, padded room, bouncing off the walls crazy. After all this, the husband apologized to me directly for what his wife had done to me. That's when I had found out what Miss Piggy was saying when she said,
Do you know who my husband is?
He was an ex-cop, wounded in the line of duty, but was left in a state where he couldn't perform his duties anymore. From what I could guess, after he was wounded, his wife began going off the deep end, to put it nicely. Well, while my parents and I talked to Mr. Piggy, Piglet would only glare at me. Before we all left, Piglet kicked me in the leg and ran off. That was the last time I had saw or even thought about it until I typed up the post after talking to Mark and Jeff, who I had reconnected with after we had a falling out, mostly between Jeff and I, as it had come to blows, but that's a story for another time. Maybe an r/tales from a fat man kind of post, who knows. As of this point in the post, which is being typed up 2 days after what just happened, I had a run-in with Piglet again. Now, as I had said, this was over 13 years from seeing him again, so at first I didn't think it was him, as this was at a gas station, as I had to go through for a few snacks for my shift and to use the restroom. That's when I noticed him. Now, remember the last time I saw him, he was a little butterball of a kid, around 10. Now he was close to a 23-year-old fat man. Messy long hair that would make any 90s rock star jealous from how much headbanging he could do with it. Contained within a backward ball cap, much like Silent Bob would wear, with no other but Piglet from Winnie the Pooh on it. For those wondering, when he was a kid, we would call him Piglet. Well, mostly Jeff, Mark, and I would. I guess much like his own nickname, it kind of stuck with him. Now, Piglet was bigger than I was, and bear in mind, I'm over 420 pounds. Yes, I'm aware of the joke with the number. But regardless, Piglet looked like if I had ate 2/3 of me to just put you in the ballpark of size. So close for 600 just from an eyeball guess. He was looking at the 2 liters while I was over by the snacks, and I had settled on a bag of pretzels, mainly because they were cheap, and I know most of the bag wasn't filled with mostly air. That's when one of his friends who was by me spoke up. For the sake of the story, let's call him Dave. Dave.
Hey, Piglet, grab your darn 2 liters and let's go.
This caused me to jump, mostly because I didn't expect to hear that name again. I turned to look at the Piglet as he grabbed a few 2 liters of different flavors and turned to Dave, who was standing close to me. That's when his eyes laser focused onto me. Now, I haven't changed much from back then. Well, besides, I didn't have my large ponytail that I had back then. Mostly because I liked having long hair back then. I'm weird like that, and I still had my beard. Nothing long, just enough to cover my face. I could see something dawn in his face as he opened his mouth. Piglet.
I'm coming. I just need to grab a few things.
He said this while moving towards Dave and I. Taking my cue to get the heck out of there, I paid for my snack and headed to my car. What I didn't expect, reaching my passenger side door, was getting my head slammed into my car from behind. Piglet had rushed out of the gas station and went after me.
You!
He growled at me after doing that. What he said next was far, far worse than what I'm about to type.
You jerk! How dare you show your ugly face to me after getting my mom committed?
Through all this, he was breathing hard out of anger, and I know how that anger can feel. There are a few people who would draw that same reaction out of me, but I do have a lot more control of emotions than I did back in the day. But he did hit my flip switch by nailing me in the face with my car, so I was not in the best of mood. Me.
And what are you gonna do about it?
I say this after opening up my side door while still facing him and tossed my snacks in my seat. Then shut my door so I could keep my hands free, because Mama didn't raise a fool. Maybe an idiot, but not a fool.
I'm going to get you back for my mom.
Right then, he reached into his pants pocket and pulled out a pocket knife. Slowly reaching down, I tapped the button for my trunk. The reason I opened my trunk was I kept something I could easily protect myself with in it, which was a metal pole that I would use for leverage when using a 4-way to change my tires. For those wondering why I had this, it's because I had lost a lot of strength in my right arm from a car accident that shattered my elbow. But I digress. Piglet's eyes turned to my trunk as it made a sound when it popped. He then focused on me and ran at me. When he was close enough, I stepped to the side and watched as Piglet slammed into my car and bounced off. Taking my chance, I went to my trunk and grabbed the steel pole and readied myself as Piglet got back up. That's when Dave stepped out, catching all this, and tackled his friend.
Let me go. He's gotta pay.
Dave.
Dude, settle down.
They began to fight, which sadly for Piglet, Dave was a lot stronger. This was due to Dave looking like he works out on a regular basis. Not like muscle man workout, but more like the guy just looking to be fit strong. After this time, the cops had shown up. What I didn't know till afterward was that the gas station attendant saw what happened out the window and called them. To make this long update short, Piglet was arrested for assault. Dave and I were let go, as I was only protecting myself, and Dave was trying to stop Piglet. The cops got my number and told me that if they needed me to testify that they will call. But with the footage from the gas station, they didn't think they would, as it would more than likely be enough. After all that, I get in my car and went back to work. I had let my supervisor know what happened, and I just took some deep breaths to stop shaking after all that. To be honest, I was rather rattled from the encounter and had talked a little bit to people on Discord to help to calm myself down, partly from being attacked, as well as the adrenaline finally running out. I am shaking a little bit writing this, as it had rattled me a bit, and this isn't my only run-in with a weapon-wielding idiot. But that's a story for another time. As it goes to show you that you can't stop stupid and you can't escape crazy. With all that said, I would like to thank everyone for your kind comments, as they do help me out and help me feel better. Especially after reading things like this, it does help a lot. And to Mr. Reddit, thank you for your awesome readings, and thank you again for reading my stories. I do hope you're having a good day. Thank you for reading. Hope you enjoyed. Next we've got Entitled Kid Tries to Take My Laptop, but Fails. So on one Christmas, my sister and I got a laptop and we used it for many things. Quite recently, my laptop stopped working, so I used my sister's when she lets me. My mom has some classes for something, not gonna specify, and sometimes her classes take place at a McDonald's, so my sister and I tag along. My sister takes her laptop and many other devices to use when we're bored. Our cast. We've got me. We've got Entitled Mom, Enormous Mammal. We've got Entitled Kid, her goblin, and the nice employee. So we enter the McDonald's, and my mom goes to the table her class is held. My sister and I go to a table near the play place. We are on our phone for a bit when I see Entitled Mom and Entitled Kid, who's about 6 to 8, enter the McDonald's. I don't think anything of it, because many kids come to this McDonald's with their moms. It's about 5 minutes, and I get bored scrolling through Reddit, so I ask my sister to use her laptop. She hesitantly agrees and gives it to me. I open it up and start playing a game called Survive.io. 10 minutes go by, and I feel breathing on my neck, and I turn around suddenly while trying to hide in a bush. In-game. Hey!
Hey!
That's all we say for about 2 minutes, and I keep playing. I sigh, pretending I was mad, so the kid seems amused.
Can I try?
Sorry, but this is not my computer, and I can't lend it to anyone. My sister is sitting in another area, so doesn't know this is happening.
Oh, come on.
Sorry, bud. The entitled kid walks off a bit upset, and I don't hear anything of him for a bit. About 10 minutes later, I see a kid running down the aisle I was sitting in, and where I was seated, it would be easy to grab the laptop. You know what he did? He tried to grab it. I'm way older and stronger, so he can't take it away. Hey! Not too loud, but enough to catch his attention. Thank God this laptop had a 180 hinge, or else that kid's grip would have broke it for sure. He pulls harder.
Give it to me.
This is not yours. Entitled kid intentionally lets go. The entitled kid falls back, and he hits his head on the chair that was behind him and starts crying really loudly. My sister looks, but doesn't really do anything, but signals to me, "What happened?" Me mouthing, "Hold on." My mom and her class pay no attention as they think that it's a baby crying. Entitled mom comes running and picks up entitled kid, saying,
It's okay. What the heck happened?
Me trying to stay calm. "Ma'am, your son, I'm guessing, tried to steal a laptop that wasn't his, and let go on purpose to get hurt and get me into trouble.
My angel would never do that, you liar.
I am not lying, he really did.
Stop lying and give him that computer.
It is not his, so no. Nice employee.
Is there anything wrong?
Entitled mom.
He
Points at me.
hit my son and stole his computer. I want him arrested.
Is this true, OP?
Me.
No.
Entitled mom interrupts me.
Yes, it is. Now have him kicked out.
I'm furious now. No, it's not. This is my sister's computer and I can prove it. Ask him what the wallpaper is. I close the computer, and since I have the window open of my game, it is impossible for me to have seen the wallpaper after I stole it. Nice employee.
So, entitled kid?
His mom now knows that this is a problem and runs off with her kid. Nice employee.
Well, obviously it is yours.
She smiles. Yes, it is. Thank you for helping.
No problem.
She walks away and I keep playing. This is my first post on r/entitled parents, and I'm on mobile right now, so sorry for bad formatting. I'll fix it later. By the way, this was today, about 10 minutes ago, and I'm still here. Entitled mom attempts to take my Christmas present.
Hey, Mr. Reddit.
I know it's not actually Christmas time, but I really want to share this story. Mobile. Just mobile. Let's set the scene. So for Christmas, my grandma bought me a drawing tablet and Minecraft for the Switch. Afterwards, we head back to my house for the other half of the family to come over. Our cast. We've got Bratty Kid. We've got Entitled Aunt. We've got the Bratty Kid's nice sister. And we've got me, Lunix. Bratty Kid and his sister were in my room, and at some point, Bratty Kid went downstairs. He came back up with my new $200 drawing tablet that my grandma had got me that morning.
Hey, Lunix, what's this?
Me, looking over to see what he has. A drawing tablet. Go put it back.
Can I have it?
What the heck? Absolutely not. Bratty Kid starts to cry.
Why not? It's Christmas. You have to give me something.
Yeah, and it will be a black eye. Bratty Kid's sister says,
This is why you're my favorite cousin, Lunix.
Then I hear it. The footsteps. My water starts shaking like Jurassic Park, and I realized the mistake I made. Entitled mom from the hall.
Excuse me? What do you mean, black eye?
Your son seems to think he owns my brand new drawing tablet.
It's his. He brought it to show you what he can draw.
Not true. How would he show me?
With the tablet.
You mean the tablet with no screen?
Just give it to him. He deserves it more than you.
Sorry, but no. Go. Entitled mom cuts me off.
Look, Bratty Kid.
Points to my new Minecraft cartridge.
It's that block game you like.
Bratty Kid's sister.
So?
Since you were so mean to him, he should at least have that.
Entitled mom, leave. Now.
Ugh, fine. Come on, Bratty Kid and Bratty Kid's sister.
Bratty Kid's sister leaves, but Bratty Kid tries to grab the tablet again. I grab him and push him down the steps and out the front door. Everyone was in the kitchen at the other end of the house, so I don't know if any of them know what happened that day. Edit. For clarification, just in case, the tablet my grandma bought didn't have a screen because you're supposed to look at the computer in order to draw on whatever application it's compatible with. Files are stored on said computer. That's why I knew how much Bratty Kid and Entitled Mom were BSing, besides everything else in the story. Next we've got Entitled Girlfriend wants me to risk my life to see her. Hi Mr. Reddit and Re-Army. Love your videos and the voices and thought I would share this story of entitled girlfriend. I am on PC, so my apologies for the format and spelling. Backstory. This was back when I was a security guard at a college campus 2 years ago. I was at work readying myself for a Friday night and a weekend when I got a call from my dad informing me of a storm headed to my city, Waterloo, Canada, and said I should stay at my best friend who lives 5 minutes away from where I work. I should also mention that I was dating a very entitled girlfriend that was nice 1 minute but turns into a Karen in a blink of an eye if she did not get her way. Our cast. We've got me, heavy metal lover. We've got BFF, my bestie. And we've got entitled girlfriend. The storm was intense as I was chilling with my BFF, hanging out and having a good time. BFF. So, Metallideath, are you going to be here all weekend? That's the plan. This storm is going to obliterate my area, and the neighbor at home is having issues with his blower. Oh, give me a second. It's entitled girlfriend. Hello? Entitled girlfriend in a pleasant voice.
Hey, baby. Just wondering if you're gonna come over this weekend. I miss you.
I can't this weekend. Sorry. Entitled girlfriend in the Mr. Reddit Karen voice.
What? What do you mean?
I'm currently storm-stayed in Waterloo, and the roads are terrible. So I'm at my BFF's place to be safe and, not die due to a car accident.
The weekends should be reserved for me. I am your girlfriend, and you are a skilled driver. I want to spend a night with my man.
What the heck is your issue? If you really cared, you would understand my safety concerns. And yes, even with my skilled driving, there are other drivers who aren't as gifted of my skill.
That doesn't mean anything. You have snow tires on your car. You can darn well come here to see me.
I'm not risking my life to drive an hour and a half to your place, especially if you're being like this. End of story. Hangs up. BFF. Wow, she has no concept. Next time she calls, let me tell her what's up. The phone rings. Speak of the devil. Have at her. BFF. What do you want this time?
Who the heck are you? Where is my boyfriend?
He is here safe with me, not going anywhere because he is smart, unlike you.
Listen here, you jerk. It is my job to keep him safe, not yours. So buzz off and let me talk to him.
You failed to see that he doesn't want to talk to you right now. Give me the phone. He hands the phone to me. Entitled girlfriend, you listen and you listen to me well. I am not. She cuts me off.
You are gonna come here, or so help me.
How about you shut up for a change? I am not risking my life. End of story. And if you can't understand that, this relationship is over.
But, I just want to spend time with you.
Not happening.
Why can't you just drive slowly and take back roads here?
I guess you can't see that no means no. Goodbye, and don't call me ever again. I hang up. The phone keeps ringing constantly as I kept ignoring until I got annoyed. I thought I told you not to call me.
I saw a snowplow drive by my place. Now you can come here.
No. As a matter of fact, I don't think this relationship is working out. I'm breaking up with you because you are too much of an entitled jerk that doesn't care about the safety of others, that also being me. Goodbye, entitled girlfriend, and if you contact me again, I will be notifying the authorities.
Fine. Have fun with your friend. Just know that you will never find anyone like me.
That's the point. I don't want another psycho, entitled person like you. hangs up. The rest of the night goes way better. BFF and I hang out, and the next day we went bowling and drinking, and it turned out to be the best weekend ever, despite it being cold and a massive blizzard. Mr. Reddit, I give you full permission to read this on YouTube, and do please let me know of when it's posted so I can listen and enjoy. Next we've got My Aunt Was an Entitled Parent. This story is a little long. Sorry. The entitled kids did so much during a family dinner that it was hard to shorten the story. If you want to read it on a video, feel free. I have other stories about my family, but this one is the best example of their entitlement. I have an aunt who had her kids late in life. She is 10 years younger than my parents. I had kids early, well, in my early 20s, so her kids are about the age of my kids. My husband and I moved, so we lived near my aunt when I was pregnant with my middle child. Not purposely to be near her, but we had a good job offer near her. We thought it would be nice to have family close by. My mother came into our town for a visit. She decided it would be fun to have a family dinner at a restaurant. I told my mother that unless we had a private room, she could count us out. Aunt's kids had horrible behavior at home and worse behavior in public. My mom thought I was being judgmental and overreacting to very minor bad behavior. She was sure that Aunt would not let her children run amok in a restaurant. Right after we got there, Aunt's oldest kid, entitled son, and her daughter, entitled daughter, opened 4 individual packs of graham crackers after they smashed them into crumbs. Then they started throwing the crumbs at people. My oldest son hates to have anything between his shirt and his skin. Entitled son put a handful of crumbs down his shirt. My son was not amused, and I had to take him to the bathroom to get the crumbs off of him. Crumbs stuck to the inside of his shirt, but I had a spare shirt in the car for just this kind of thing. Entitled son also threw crumbs at the server who took our drink order. Right after we ordered drinks, entitled son and entitled daughter started running around the room. My older two, A and his little sister B, just watched them and wondered what they were doing. A and B knew that if they joined entitled son and entitled daughter, I would take them home, or at least punish them when we got home. No videos or no favorite video for a week, no dessert, etc. When the server came in with our drinks, entitled daughter was doing cartwheels in the empty space in the room. All the tables were pushed together for our party. When he saw the server, entitled son ran over, clearly intending to push her and try to make her drop the tray of drinks. He pulled this stunt the last time I ate at a restaurant with my aunt's family. I grabbed entitled son on his way to the server and stopped him. The server was able to deliver our drinks without a problem. Aunt was furious that I stopped entitled son from doing what he wanted. I don't remember exactly what she said, but she was very upset with me. Didn't I know that entitled son was such a wonderful and gifted child that he should be allowed to do whatever he wanted? The meal didn't get better from there. As we waited for food, entitled son and daughter dropped packets of jelly, kept on the table in a little basket, and ate it with their fingers. Entitled son and entitled daughter opened packets of jelly, kept on the table in a little basket, and ate it with their fingers. They ran around the room screaming. They even wiped jelly in my mother's hair on purpose, and let them go to the bathroom alone. My kids also had to go, so I went with them. The brats didn't know I was right behind them when they started looking under the stall doors. One poor lady was super upset by it. Any reasonable person would be. I had to hold their hands on the way back to the table. They kept trying to go over to tables and stick their fingers into other people's food and drinks. They actually managed to do this at one table before I realized they were doing it. My mother had to pay for that table's food to keep the manager from throwing us all out. As some of my great aunts and great uncles were with us, my mother didn't want us to be thrown out. When the food came, entitled son and entitled daughter refused to use silverware. At ages 4 and 6, they knew how to use it, they just didn't want to. They drowned everything they ate in syrup and then ate it with their fingers. Entitled son filled a small plate with syrup and tried to lick it up off the plate. Aunt thought it was cute. After the kids were done eating, I took all 4 of them back to the bathroom and washed their hands. I held entitled son and entitled daughter by the wrists so they could not go bother people. As the adults were finishing their meals and chatting, I look over to see that entitled son, entitled daughter, and my kids, except for the baby, had gotten up from the table. Entitled son and entitled daughter were kneeling on the floor, and I heard A whispering that they were going to be in big trouble if they didn't stop. I nudged my mother and pointed to the kids. She was closer to them, and I wasn't going to deal with this unless my own kids were part of it. When I heard A say that he and B were not part of it, and that they told entitled son and entitled daughter not to do it, I went over. Entitled son and entitled daughter had covered about 1 square yard of the wall with jelly and honey. It was ground into the carpet where they dropped it. They had emptied the baskets from our tables. We had moved them over to the empty table in the room so that we had room for our food that held packets of jelly and honey. At least a dozen empty containers were sitting on the floor. My aunt tried to say that my kids had somehow made her kids do this. I proposed a sticky hands test to see who actually was involved. I knew that all of them had washed their hands just a few minutes before, and all of their uneaten food was in to-go boxes. My favorite great aunt volunteered to check their hands so that aunt would not blame me or say that my mother was lying to keep my kids out of trouble. Sure enough, both A and B had clean hands. Entitled son and entitled daughter were covered with jelly and honey up to their wrists. Aunt tried to say that they had never done that before, so they shouldn't be punished because she didn't think to tell them not to paint the walls with jelly. That might have been believable, except for entitled son. He told his mom that they had done it at another location of this restaurant just a few days before. She told them it was okay and even opened the packets for them. She got very red-faced after her 6-year-old said this. She took them to the bathroom and then left. We were all done after that. It pretty much broke up the meal. My mom paid for the other table's food and tip along with our own bill. She spoke to the manager about the wall and paid $50 for the cleanup. She also gave a huge tip to our server. Later, my mother was just astounded when she thought about the whole experience. She could not believe that Aunt would let her kids act that way. She also could not believe that Aunt didn't offer to pay for cleaning and damages or for the other table's dinner. Aunt did call my mother about the dinner. She, my aunt, was upset that we all picked on her kids. Didn't we know that it was all A and B's fault? Aunt was positive that A and B somehow put entitled kids up to doing it all, even though entitled kids said that it was their own idea and that A and B kept telling them not to do it. My mother never again thought it was strange that we didn't spend a lot of time with my aunt after that. We mostly saw Aunt when my mother came to visit. I don't know what my mother said to Aunt after that, but I am sure that her displeasure was vividly clear to my aunt. About a month later, my mom called me and said I would never guess what happened. Aunt tried to take her kids into that same restaurant again, and they were told to leave. Aunt and her kids were banned from all locations of the restaurant chain. Aunt called my mother to get sympathy and see if I was banned too. My mother said that Aunt deserved it and I didn't. My kids were not the ones behaving abominably. I think Aunt managed to go almost a whole month without talking to my mother after this. And our final story of the day. No, lady, I didn't steal my phone. Hello, Mr. Reddit. Some days it really doesn't pay to pick up the phone. Some background. About 5 years ago, I found myself back in college and working 2 jobs. For a grown woman, that left me precious little time to do my assignments or take care of my family. I also kept a landline phone at home with a number I have had since 1998. It was hooked up to my fax machine for one of my jobs, and I always answered it. So one afternoon, I had a term paper due and was blessed with 3 hours to myself to work on it. About 20 minutes in, the phone rings and our story begins. The cast is crazy old lady, nice policeman, and me. Hello?
Who is this? You're not Tom?
No, I'm not. No one named Tom here. You have the wrong number. She hangs up. I go back to it. 30 seconds later, the phone rings again. Hello?
Who is this?
What number are you calling? She rattled off my phone number back to me, but in our state, we have about 4 area codes. I ask her which one she is using, telling her that I am in a city about 150 miles away from the one she is in. Really, at this point, I can tell she is very old and is having trouble understanding the problem. What I didn't know is that she was as simple-minded and stubborn as a mule.
I didn't dial it wrong. My son put his number in the phone for me. He gave me this phone when he bought it. You have his phone. You stole his phone.
What? No, lady. I've had this number for over 15 years. This is a landline in my home, in another town. I'm sorry, but you are confused. She says many colorful words about my upbringing and general thieving nature. I hang up. She called back almost 7 times in 10 minutes. Most of the conversations were about how I had stolen poor Tom's phone and how she was going to find me and
mess you up until you're gone.
I just kept repeating that the area code was wrong. She needed to hand dial it and to stop wasting my time. The next time she called, I got her to tell me her name and then told her if she called me one more time, she would regret it and hung up on her. She immediately called back to scream more insults at me. What she didn't know is I had gone online to find the phone number for her local police station. My next call was to them.
Hello, this is the police. How can we help you?
Hi, officer. I'm Kansas Day Lily, and I live in my town. For the last hour, I've had a little old lady from your town calling me over and over looking for her son. She sounds very confused and upset, and I'm afraid she is having a stroke or maybe has mixed up her medications. Could you have an officer check on her? Her name is Crazy Old Lady, and her son is Tom. I'm scared for her. She simply will not listen and really seems in crisis.
Of course. Thank you. We'll do an elder check on her right away.
I sat back and waited to see if this would be the end of it. Nope. 10 minutes later, an incandescently mad crazy old lady called back.
You called the cops on me?
Yes, and if you call back ever again, I will call your hospital and tell them you don't know who you are and to put you in the rest home. Don't call me. It's not his phone. She hangs up. And shoutouts to our Regenerals of the day, Random Dude, Jack, Jeff, and Lucas Gamer. Become tomorrow's Regenerals by leaving as many reads as you can in the comments below, and please listen to my playlist every night when you go to sleep.